It's coming out two areas.
If we look under here, that is coolant, like that whole underbelly pad, and that is a puddle of coolant.
What is up, you guys? JB Cars back, and today I'm bringing you guys a video. I have not brought you guys a video in a while. There's just been a lot going on and had, an issue. My first major problem with the M550, aside from that wastegate actuator from a very long time ago. I did run into my first issue with this car, since one, tuning it, and two, just in ownership in general. Had its first coolant issue. It was leaking coolant, as you guys saw from that first clip.
That tank is literally out of coolant. So, and then also if we look down here,
If we look under here, that is coolant, like that whole underbelly pad, and that is a puddle of coolant.
To go into detail on what exactly happened, roughly I'd say a month ago at this point. I was just normal driving, everyday driving. I would come home and start noticing there'd be like little puddles underneath the car. Once I pull it out or pull it in, whatever. I was noticing that there was some coolant on the floor, and roughly the next day or so, it popped up on my iDrive saying refill coolant. So, first impulse, first thoughts, I'm thinking, well, leaking coolant. What could possibly cause it to be leaking coolant? So I ended up opening up the engine bay. It is very dirty in here. It is nowhere near spring yet, so don't bash me in the comments for how dirty the engine bay looks. Trust me, in the spring, I'd give it a nice clean detail. As you see, there is still some coolant residue all over the engine bay. When I originally started getting the coolant leak, I popped the hood. I was like, there's gotta be something. I noticed that this coolant hose right here where that clip is.
but yeah, the cause of all this is,
See this little guy right here?
yeah, he's not sealed all the way. Whenever the fan kicks in after the car turns off, cool down the turbos, coolant gets circled through expansion tank to cool off. It starts shooting out everywhere.
Was kind of like leaking, and it was like squirting out coolant everywhere when it was hot. Hence, there's coolant residue everywhere. I originally was thinking, it's common for most G chassis vehicles, like G30s, to have this coolant tank leaking. So that was my first thought. Hey, this tank is probably leaking. It could be leaking from the bottom. It could be leaking around these seals somewhere. Maybe I was thinking it was possibly this cap at first when I saw the coolant everywhere, and then I did see that. Ended up replacing this line. Bought it from BMW, replaced it. Was like, cool. I think I fixed that issue, and I think there's no more coolant leaking everywhere. Come a couple days later, still have the issue. Still says I got a refill coolant again after topping it off after replacing that line. I was right back to square one, like, oh my goodness, what could this be? So my next instinct was to get underneath this tank here. So I ended up taking the wheel off, removing the fender line. I was checking underneath the tank to see if, there's any seepage at all. I had the car started, I was running it. It wasn't really leaking when I had it running, which was strange because I was kind of like, well, why is it not leaking while it's running? But yet when I turned it off, on these models, the fan will come on and run after to just cool off the engine for a couple minutes after I turn the car off.
Oh my god. Oh my.
It'll also circulate coolant through those turbos to cool off the turbos once you turn the car off. And the car was still leaking coolant underneath on mainly the driver left side. My next plan, I guess, per se, was running the car. It's all right. It's still running normally, but I'm still leaking coolant. fast forward a couple days later, still driving the car, just refilling the coolant every now and then. One day, it was just really, really bad. Like, it was leaking like crazy. So I ended up topping off the coolant again, and I was like, I need to like get this pressure tested at a shop or somewhere to figure out where this is really coming from, because this is getting pretty serious. I ended up taking it to the shop that I had work on this wastegate actuator, and they were nice enough to do the test for me, the pressure test, and I was able to actually get under the car itself with them while they did the test so they can show me exactly where it was leaking. In the long run, out of all this mess, come to find out, it was actually this radiator. What ended up happening was it was actually this radiator, and it was an auxiliary water pump to the turbos. Coming back over here real quick, you see these turbo coolant lines right here going up. The one on this side, the pump that is sitting down here, it actually sits on the side of the radiator. It is actually clipped onto the radiator as a strap. Obviously took it off this to put on a new one. There was a strap that held on the radiator, or the auxiliary water pump, and that pump, when I was at the shop, he did the pressure test. It was leaking. Obviously, you see the seal is very worn here. It was leaking out of this, and that pump it failed completely. So that was one of the main problems. That pump, that seal, something happened with it. It failed, and it was leaking the most coolant. And now I found the culprit of my coolant leak. I ended up taking the car back home that day, got home, ordered a new radiator and a new pump, because obviously I am a DIYer. I like to DIY a lot of stuff. Also a couple other maintenance things. That he said needed to be done was the Guibo drive shaft connector, and the front control arm bushings, which I already have the bushings. I was going to do those this spring anyways. And the Guibo, I know that is also very common just on any BMW. That also, he said, is ready to be replaced, so I also have that part now as well. I ended up taking the whole car, not apart, mainly just had to remove all this stuff up here, access the radiator, replace the pump. Now she's back to normal, and she's running great, no more leaks. I also was looking as well on some forums and other places. A lot of the G30 radiators, not just on the M550, but mainly I was seeing on 530s. Those were main culprits for radiator fails, where they would leak similar to how that one did. So this, I guess, is a pretty common problem on these vehicles. I never knew it was until I did my research kind of on it, but I'm glad that, it wasn't anything crazy. Obviously, still a very major problem. You're leaking coolant. You don't want to starve your engine of coolant or overheat it. I was watching temps all the time while I was driving with the leak, though. Obviously not advised, having to commute this car a lot. I always kept that iPad with me with BeamerLink active to just make sure the car was, staying cool, staying at temperature, and always making sure that these were always topped off. This is actually the main, and this is the auxiliary that they call it, even though it's vice versa. So this is like your main coolant for the whole engine, and this is your intercooler and turbochargers mainly. Or not turbochargers, just intercoolers. Basically, yeah. It was kind of a pain though, removing the radiators just with all the clips. Other stuff on the bottom, it was just, I couldn't get it out, so I kind of had to wedge it out, pry it out. Maybe broke the clip, but not like fully broke it. It's at least seated in there, and it's all right, but we do have no more leaks, which is awesome. Because as you guys can see now, it is completely dry under here. But yeah, so that pretty much sums up the first major issue I've had with this car. Obviously not anything too over the top when it came to fixing it. It did take probably 2 days just to get it done, just because of, this engine bay is really compact and there's not a whole lot of room to work. Gotta be very precise and very careful not to break any of these plastic coolant lines that are still here. I need to detail this engine bay. I can't stand looking at it right now, but summer and spring is thankfully around the corner. On a quick side note, I know a lot of you guys have been following my TikTok and have been watching the shorts I've been posting on the channel, and 275 stock tires right here. I've upgraded to 305s in the rear. Very meaty, very hefty. I did post a couple pictures on my Instagram and my TikTok of me test fitting, and my gosh, this is gonna be a great setup this summer. I know I'm kind of sidetracking the video right now, but I just wanted to throw this in there. I am going to be doing an in-depth video with aggressive fitment for not just G30s, but also you guys know the F30 does have an aggressive style fitment when it comes to the summer wheels. These are obviously the stock wheels that we powder coated or hyper dipped black for the winter. But yeah, so that was the issue I had with the M550. I also noticed this too. It happened right after I flashed the car back to stock when it came to max cooling mode. I turned off max cooling mode for the winter because the car was just never getting the temperature and it was just freezing all the time driving. So I flashed it back to stock and I noticed a leak started happening like maybe a week after I flashed it back. So I think that could have possibly caused it. It kind of sucked too because I literally just picked up my GoPro like right when this issue happened. So like I didn't even get to like use, like when I filmed that clip that I have posted with the GoPro test, literally it was right after, it was the first day I got the GoPro and like a couple days after the leak started. So I was trying to be very careful driving with the GoPro on, but I don't know. I mean, when I was driving the car with the leak, I flashed max cooling mode back on and the leak was not, it slowed the leak down significantly. So I don't know if that might have played a role. Maybe it did or did not, I don't know. But everything's working how it should be now and we have no more leak. I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little update kind of video. I do have a very special video coming up in about a week or so of a very cool car we are going to be adding to the collection. Not necessarily a very performance car like this, but very similar, actually similar to the F30. For all the people that like hints out there, there might be a second F30 on the channel in a couple weeks when it comes in. We'll see. We'll see. Not the trim that everybody's expecting. In my opinion, probably the most underrated trim when it comes to the F30. So I'm very excited to bring you guys that video when the car does arrive. But for now, I hope you guys enjoyed this quick little update and me kind of just, you know, filling you guys in on what's been going on. And also, speaking of F30s, congratulations to my day one, my best friend since elementary school, Haru, who just picked up his new F30 340. I'll throw up a picture on screen and his TikTok. Make sure to go give him a follow. Obviously, go give me a follow as well on TikTok and Instagram. But I'm definitely going to be making some content with his car coming up in the spring. He's already been going crazy with the modifications, so make sure to follow him and his build on TikTok. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.
But you know I'm in the back now. Go to the bank and I cash out.
Also, too, I did finally grow up, guys, so you guys don't have to bash me for the grill stripes anymore. I'm very happy I did it. I don't know why I never did it a long time ago, but just wanted to throw that in there.
I'm in a space and I blacked out. I had to reroute, had to map out. They want the money, they ask how. They cannot grasp how, they back down. Just act now. I wanna cut you no slack now.